Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Johnny's Ambassadors Expert Webinar Series for Teens. I am your host, Laura Stack, the founder and CEO of Johnny's Ambassadors Youth Marijuana Prevention. We are a nonprofit in Denver, Colorado, and are pleased to bring you another incredible speaker for our series today, Jake White, whom I am going to introduce to you now. Jake started his own business in college and won more than $10,000 as a student entrepreneur. He was even a contestant on the TV game show The Price is Right. He's terrible at math and he has an outie belly button. Please help me welcome Jake White.
Thank you. So it was my sophomore year in college and I just declared my major. I decided I'm going to throw music festivals for a living. See, but I grew up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And I don't know if you've ever been to Wisconsin before, if there's any cheeseheads out there, but in Wisconsin, there's no music industry. We have one music festival that's huge, and everybody else does kind of these smaller festivals. And I knew that I was going to have to get outside of my hometown to get some real experience. So one summer, I was on Google checking out some internship opportunities. And for those who don't know, an internship is basically where you get job experience and you might or you might not get paid. But the point is that you build connections and you get real life experience working for someone in a professional setting. So I'm scouring the internet and I come across this music festival in Boone, North Carolina. And I'm a kid from Wisconsin. I've never been to North Carolina. I've never been to the mountains, but this music festival was called Music on the Mountaintop. And what was so cool is they literally put stages, bands, even some like rides, tents, inflatables on this mountain. And they had a 3-day music festival. And it sounded so cool. On top of that, they even said that the portion of the proceeds were going to go to restore the mountains because a lot of mining was going on and it was threatening all the natural beauty. And so I thought, this is really cool. I could get an internship with this company, get to go to the mountains for the first time in my life, get to put on a music festival, and get to support a cause. That would be pretty sweet. And so I went on the phone and I called the director of this music festival. And his name was Jimmy. I got on the phone with him and I did what's called an informational interview. And if anybody in here, maybe you're a senior in high school or a senior in college, or you're just really motivated to advance your career, here's a secret. An informational interview is the easiest way to have a professional, somebody you look up to, think that you're awesome and to probably give you an opportunity as well. So I was going to learn from them. 15 minutes. I said, hey, can I get an informational interview for 15 minutes? Because I want to be like you one day. And I want to pick your brains and how you got so successful. And here's the thing, man, adults love it when you ask them questions like this. They feel so important. And they look at us young people and say, oh, like, this is so cute. This person wants to be like me. And so I had Jimmy on a hook. He thinks I'm awesome. And before I hang up the phone, I ask him, hey, Jimmy, any chance you'd be open to maybe having an intern this summer? And the thing was, he didn't say yes. He said no, but really politely. You know, when somebody rejects you, but they're being really nice about it. Yeah, I know a lot about that. That happened to me a lot in high school, a lot in college. I would ask girls out and I would get a real polite rejection. I know what it sounds like. So when I heard it over the phone with Jimmy, I said, he did it to me too. I am not getting this internship. But you know what? I really, really wanted it. So over the next 3 weeks, I kept in touch with him. I would send him an email with my resume. I would tell him, hey, if you take me on as your intern, I'm going to work so hard for you. I would send him proof of different events that I had held on campus to show him, hey, I'm going to be awesome to work with. He gets on the phone with me again and says, you know, we're catching up. And at the end of the call, I ask him again, can I be your intern? And he rejects me politely again. But after finally I'm done with my last class in the summer, I called him one last time and he rejects me again. And here's the thing, by this time, I had already shown him how awesome I was going to be at the job. And so I decided I am going to drive from Oshkosh, Wisconsin to Boone, North Carolina over 15 hours. I'm going to show up at his door. There's no way he's going to be able to reject me to my face. And so I mean, I do what every college kid should do. I borrow my mom's Toyota Prius. I get in my car and I start driving. And I'm getting there. I'm excited. I'm seeing the mountains. And I'm about an hour away. And I get a phone call from Jimmy. He calls me and says, "Hey, Jake, I feel bad. I've been rejecting you. Maybe there's a way to get you here." And you know that feeling you get in your stomach when you've done something really stupid? I've got that stomach. Oh, I've got that feeling in my stomach. I've just been caught. I've got to tell him I've already started driving. And so I told him, "Hey, Jimmy, what would you say if I told you I was already on my way over to you? Because I figured you weren't going to send me home to Wisconsin." Hello? Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm really doing that. But can you give me an address? I was just going to show up and look for you in town. We hang up and he sends me a text message. Fast forward this story. I spend a month in Boone, North Carolina, couch surfing, staying in different people's homes, putting on this awesome music festival. And not only I didn't have to get coffee, I didn't have to do these minuscule tasks for this music festival. I got to be on radio, TV. I got to work with the bands. I got to do advertising and marketing because I showed him that I was up for anything and I wasn't going to back down. And the reason why I share this story of one of the coolest moments of my college career is to tell you that there's never just one way to do something. If you ask anybody, I'll ask you now, how do you get a job? You'll probably say, oh, you apply online. If you're really bold, you go in and you ask for the manager at your store and you ask them if they have any job openings. Then you call to follow up. But never once did someone told me that you could just drive, just show up and see what happens. But I knew in the back of my mind, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing is that I get told, hey, no, you're crazy. Go back home to Wisconsin. In that case, I would have known I went for it. I don't have any regrets. And I got to see the mountains. I would go out throughout the rest of my life knowing that I did my best shot. I did everything under my control to get this job, but everything out of my control, it didn't work out for. Lucky for me, it did, and it gave me one of the coolest experiences. And what I want to talk to you about today is what are our choices when it comes to socializing? In school, maybe many of you have been starting to see parties, people getting drunk, people getting high, starting to use nicotine and tobacco products, vaping, smoking, THC, dabbing, whatever it is, and whatever they're calling it right now. I've noticed that most people start doing it because they think it's the only way to feel like an adult, to fit in, to make friends, to have fun, or to feel good and cope with life's challenges. I'm here to propose that there are some other ways. And by the end of our time today, I want to prove that to you. So everybody, if you're listening at your computer, you can say this out loud. It might sound weird to your family, but everybody say shortcuts. All right, now say skill sets. Awesome. So shortcuts and skill sets. That's what we're going to talk about today because I believe these are two different ways that you can choose to live your life. You can choose to live your life taking shortcuts, taking the easy way out and learning how to do something one way, taking that shortcut whenever you go. In life, man, these are substances. These are the things that we do. It's the easy way to cope with stress or the easy way that society tells us, hey, if you want to get this, then do this. The best way I can think of it is when I was in school and my dad would come home and I was playing Guitar Hero or Garage Band. Y'all remember those games? Right? You get this video game controller and you're just shredding and you're feeling like a rock star. You feel so cool because you're jamming to your favorite songs. And then one day my dad comes in and says, Jake, you've been playing that game quite a bit. How many hours do you think you put into that? I was thinking about it, man. Maybe I spend like an hour every other day playing this thing. Probably, 5 hours a week or something. And then you times that by 50 weeks a year. So I'm spending 250 hours a year doing this. And so I think about it a little bit. And he says, well, what if you spend just a quarter of that time playing the real guitar, playing the drums, learning an actual instrument? I bet you could play some of these songs for real. You wouldn't even need the video game. And of course, like I brushed him off because, he's my dad. What does he know? But when I walked away, I knew that what he said was kind of true. That in life, we can choose to take shortcuts. This video game was a shortcut to feeling like a rock star, not having to put in the work of learning these songs, but I get a shortcut to feeling that way. It was an escape from reality. It was some entertainment. But if I instead developed a skill set, a way that I could actually be a rock star, what if I spent 15 minutes a day and I learned how to do something? And so I started playing the drums. And what's really fun is when I come to different schools and I'm hanging out with you guys, I'll play the drums. We'll get everything going. And what's really fun is that I can share that, hey, we get to make friends because of the commonalities that we have. Man, drumming has introduced me to my best friends. I've gotten to travel the country. Sometimes I've even made some money. But most importantly, it gives me confidence. It helps me feel good about myself. And it's something I can take throughout my life. All this to say that in life, you're going to have opportunities to take shortcuts, like using drugs or alcohol to fit in, make friends, feel good, and cope with life challenges. Or you can develop skill sets to do these things. Yeah, it takes a little bit more work, but you won't become dependent on the shortcut. Instead, this skill becomes part of who you are. And so I want to ask, what do you want out of life? And before we get there, I didn't get a chance to properly introduce myself. So you heard a little bit about me in the intro. Yes, I was on The Price is Right. One of my bucket list items in life was to be on that game show, things like that. I started a business in college, but yeah, my name is Jake. So everybody says Jake from, yes, State Farm. I'm not wearing khakis today, but I get that a lot. Also, I grew up in Wisconsin where the four things Wisconsinites love, right? Beer, cheese, the Packers. Wait, what's the fourth? Oh yeah, more beer. That's what they love. And so me growing up there, man, I had made a decision that was going to set me apart from everybody else. And that is that since losing my uncle to addiction and seeing addiction in my family, I said, I'm not going to drink beer. I'm not going to smoke. I'm not going to use any drugs because I wanted to invest in my future. I never heard a story about how alcohol or drugs had improved someone's life. I'd never heard those stories. I did know about how it had taken someone down the wrong path, people really, really close to me. And so I just said, that's not going to be a part of my story. I'm going to focus on building skill sets instead of taking shortcuts. And just like for fun, me and my friends, we would always go out, we play volleyball, spike ball, ultimate frisbee. Like we just love being active. I was in a band, so we played music together, all those really, really fun things. And that was my way of getting the things I wanted out of life. And so what I want to do is I want to ask you from your perspective, where you're sitting right now, what do you want out of life? And I'm going to give you some answers that people give me of what they want out of life. So if you were to answer this question, you can take a second, think about it. Fast forward your life 5, 10 years from now. What do you want to happen? And here are the top answers that I get from around the country. I want to go to college, take care of my family, make lots of money, help people, travel the world, become a better person, have a career you love, play sports. Yeah, some of you went exactly to the top right. You're like, yeah, that's what I'm here for, baby. I want to find Bay. I want to make an impact, have great memories, or create art and music. And here's the deal. You can absolutely have all of these things. There are people just like you all over the world who get these things. But we live in a country where over half the people would tell you that they don't have these things. They're not happy with their life, their career, their relationships. And the crazy thing is that a lot of these things are in our control. And so the question we should ask ourselves, if we want these things, if we have the choice to get them, then we have to realize what's going to take us there and what's going to draw us away from it. And I view my life in forms of choices, because I know that life isn't made by chance, it's made by choice. I'll say that one more time. Life isn't made by chance, it's made by choice. Because chance are things that you can't control. If we focus on those things throughout the rest of our life, we will continue to be upset with our circumstances. But instead, if we focus on the things we can control, our choices, we can take control of our life and we can create whichever one we want. And so when you think about all those things in your life that you want, that the choices you make are going to add up to you either getting there or not getting there, I divide it up into basically a line. And this line is of the things on one side are the things that I will do. I will do these things in my life because they will help me get what I want out of life. They're going to bring me closer to my goals and closer to success. On the other side of that line are the things that I will not do. These are the things that I say, those are not going to bring me closer to my goals. And so when it comes to partying, me in that college scenario, I'll bring you back. It was my freshman year. My freshman year, and I had already decided my wills and my won'ts. I had lost my family to addiction. I said, it's not going to be me. So I will not be drinking. I will not be smoking or using any drugs. But then there's kind of a problem, isn't there? Y'all have seen the movies, right? You've seen music videos. What happens in every college movie? Yes, there's a party scene. People are getting crazy. They're getting drunk. They're getting high. Someone's ending up peeing somewhere they're not supposed to, taking their shirt off someone they're not supposed to. Someone's getting arrested. And the thing is, in college culture, these are the things that sometimes people, they glamorize it. They act like that was a fun time because that's what we're fed by the media. See, companies will have you make decisions based on what they want you to buy. The media is always going to push you towards an action. And if you're aligned with those actions and your goals line up with them, then yeah, that's great. That's good media. Keep consuming it. If it's not, then it's something that can push you away from your desires and goals. So I was in this college scenario, hanging out with my friends, and then every weekend what would happen is everyone would go out to house parties and bars, doing that college thing, living it up, being one with the culture that was fed to them. Hey, if you want to be in college, if you want to fit in, have fun, this is how you do it. But while all my friends were doing that, there's a problem for me, because what was I supposed to do? I mean, sit in my room alone, play video games, watch movies? You can only do that so much before you start feeling like an outsider. And I remember there was a moment when I said, you know what? Life would just be easier if I just gave in. Everyone would accept me. I would fit in for once. Why am I not doing something that's going to help my social life? And you're going to have the same opportunities. See, sometimes you think that you should change in order to fit into the world. But the other question you have to ask yourself is, what if the world needs to change? What if the world is taking a shortcut, the easy way out? And those people are getting sucked into things that aren't good for them. See, I can tell you that students who drink and smoke before the age of 15, they are 5 times more likely to develop an addiction. On top of that, I can tell you that 9 out of 10 adults who currently use drugs and are addicted to them, they started using before the age of 18. Yeah, 90% of people currently addicted started using before the age of 18. And if you do use before 15, you're 5 times more likely to develop that addiction, which tells you what? That the choices you make in your teen years are extremely important. And if there's a chance where you say, hey, I need to change who I am in order to fit in the world, maybe what you need to do instead is to stand out. And so that's what I started doing. And before I continue my story, I just want to ask you, what are some reasons why people start to drink and smoke? Because if I shared some statistics, I shared about how addiction starts, but I didn't even share the death, the dropout, and the date rapes that go along with these substances. And you might even have somebody in your life who's been affected by addiction or by substances. Think about that person. The question is, if you could change something to make sure that didn't happen, wouldn't you want to do that? I think we all do. But the question is, can we still get what we want out of life? So the question I want to ask you is this. If all these things can happen, bad things can happen when we use substances, what are the reasons why people would choose to drink and smoke? Why do people do it? And here's what people tell me. Well, I do it to fit in, to relieve stress, because it's expected of me, to loosen up, to feel confident, to forget for a while, to party, to be social, because marketing works, or stress and anxiety, to connect with family, or to feel like an adult. Now go ahead and take a look at everything on this list. Odds are you've heard these reasons, or maybe you've said these reasons. And this is why I felt left out. It's because everybody was giving me these good reasons. And is there anything bad on this list? Is feeling confident bad? Is partying bad? Is forgetting your circumstances bad for a while or feeling like an adult? No, these aren't inherently negative things. These are good things. But here's the truth, is that using drugs or alcohol or vaping devices to get these things is not a way to sustain these things. It's a short-term solution for a long-term problem. See, you put a Band-Aid on an injury. Because think of it like this, if your house was burning down, would you want to go loosen up somewhere else to forget about it, to be social? Would you leave your house just to forget, go over to a friend's house, play some games, have fun, and then feel like it was solved? No, it was a short-term escape. But what happens when you go back to your house that's been on fire? The flames are bigger now. It's burning down. It's worse than it was before because we didn't address the issue. So all of these things, all of these reasons, they're not bad reasons to do something, but when we use substances for these things, we have to realize that it's a shortcut. It's a short-term solution. And the thing about shortcuts is sometimes they can cut your life short. That's what I experienced that night when I got the phone call that my favorite uncle was now gone. He was dead. I could no longer talk to him, play with him, go to the movies with him, go to the races, all of the things that we love to do together, just because of a decision that he had made that had grown into a bigger part of his life. So all of these things are reasons why people choose to drink or smoke. Now, on the opposite side, what are the reasons why people choose not to drink or smoke? And I'm going to emphasize these as well. This is what people tell me. Well, it's for my health reasons, because of my family, because I'm playing sports, or it's expensive. I value my academics. I'm an athlete. Maybe my faith tells me that's not the right thing to do because it smells, because you have fun without it, or you lost someone. Maybe you don't like losing control, or you've seen addiction in your family. Now, the difference between the last list that we had being shortcuts, these things are the reasons why people would choose not to. It's often because they're protecting their long-term goals. For example, their health, their academics, their family, their faith, or their abilities. These are all reasons why people would choose not to do these things. These are skill sets. So when I talk about prioritizing shortcuts and skill sets, saying that skill sets are the things that stay with you forever and shortcuts are the ones that can cut your life short, this is what I'm talking about. Now, I want to play a little bit of a game because I always want to go over the facts. Like we should go over a little data, a little science about what we've been taught and make sure that we're learning the correct things. Because lucky for me, I had a couple parents who decided that they weren't going to smoke or drink or use any drugs around me. So I didn't associate that with adulthood. I never tried to defend my drug use, but a lot of my friends, they think that they need to do these things. And because of that, they will look up data, they will look up research and data that defends their decision. And oftentimes what's really crazy is that the companies that sell you products like vaping devices and cannabis products and alcohol, they will pay researchers to get the results they want. And so you cannot trust everything that you read. And so I'm going to go through some of the things that I've learned in a fun way. And this is going to be cool. So I'm going to pull up these slides. You won't get the cool music, but that's okay. And there you go. You can see my screen. Who wants to be a millionaire? I don't have $1 million, so I usually give away t-shirts and things like that. But my first question for you is, what is alcohol? Is it A, an essential part of a balanced and nutritious diet? B, a depressant drug produced by the natural fermentation of sugars? C, the most effective thirst quencher for those 21 and older? Or D, your face? All right, I'll give you a second to determine which one you think is right. And it is B, a depressant drug produced by the natural fermentation of sugars. And if you know what fermentation is, some of you might know what it is. If you don't, fermentation is a fancy word for rotting. So if you let a fruit or a vegetable sit around too long, it rots and it ferments. And that's how alcohol is created. Also, I just like this one for 21 and older. You might not know this, but a lot of people argue over the legal drinking age, saying it should be younger. And I'm just going to ask you quick if you know why it's 21 years old. If you said because your brain isn't fully developed until you're 21 to 25 years old, then you're correct. That's why. And so since your brain isn't developed, if you consume alcohol or drugs before then, you're doing some serious damage to that development, and you may not get those basically growth opportunities back. Second question, what does alcohol do? Is it A, cleans wounds by killing cells, bacteria, and other things it comes in contact with? B, slows down neurotransmitters in your brain, making you more stupider? Makes you feel good at first, then worse as you drink more? Or all of the above? All right, this one, a lot of people know it. You've taken those standardized tests with your number 2 pencils, and it is D, all of the above. And this is crazy. What's really insane about this one to me is that as students, as young people who glamorize drinking sometimes, and there's party scenes around our schools, what's really amazing to me is that instead of focusing on having fun, going to see a band or having a photo scavenger hunt or doing something cool, having a barn party, and just playing games, competing, talking trash, we make the center of our partying around alcohol. And that's how it gets out of hand. And you know what's crazy to me too about humans is at some point we came from like we're using alcohol as a numbing agent and a way to clean wounds and bacteria. And we're choosing to put that stuff into our bodies. Humans are weird. 3, which of these facts about vaping is false? So this is the first one that's going to maybe trick you up. Which one is not true? The first vaping device was invented to help people quit smoking cigarettes. Vapes contain over 70 chemicals, some that are toxic and can cause cancer. Cigarette companies dislike the popularity of vaping products. There have been at least 60 reported deaths and 2,700 illnesses from vaping. Which one do you think is not true? The answer is C. It's C. Yes. Some people don't realize this, that the first vaping device was invented to actually help people stop smoking. But now studies have shown that people who start vaping are 5 times more likely to start smoking cigarettes too. And that is why this answer is true. Cigarette companies love vaping products. In fact, they bought into a majority share of these companies because they want to make money off of them and they know how to sell deadly products to the masses. I'm just going to say this. If you are somebody or you know somebody who has started to use vaping devices, you think it's harmless, I'm telling you, look at the real medical research and think about how we get research. We get research by people visiting hospitals, by people dying, by long-term health consequences. So since vaping is such a new product, they're going to gather all this data from us. And if you say, hey, I'm open for being a guinea pig in this experiment, then vaping is a good way to be a guinea pig. But if you say, hey, I don't actually know the facts, I want to wait and see what it says, then just be leery about what you read. Make sure you're reading on the medical journals, and you can trace back some of the other articles that it came from different companies that are selling these products. All right, let's touch on marijuana. All right, let's do this. Dude, it's a natural and medically approved plant that's good for your health. It's clinically shown to drop 7 to 8 IQ points in regular users. It is not addictive. It is Snoop Dogg's kale. Some of you like at your house yelling, it's D, it's D. All right, here's where you play the player, not the game, okay? Which one did I choose that's true about marijuana? Because I know you can make an argument for D. It is B, clinically shown to drop 7 to 8 IQ points in regular users. And the reason why that's significant is that if you want to give yourself the best chance for success, then dropping your IQ points is not a good idea. If you want to make more money, be more successful, to have more in your life, then aiming for have less in your brain isn't the best way to do it. This is something that's definitely on my won't list. I'm not going to get into cannabis products. And a lot of my friends, I'll say this to any of you who have this going on too, is they started using THC because they said things like, well, I've got anxiety or I've got depression. This is a good way to cope with that. You know, it solves my problem. But in reality, it is not. It's not fixing it. Yes, it's a temporary escape that makes you forget it. But when it wears off, your body creates more anxiety until you use it again and again and again. Not only that, but when you use drugs, the effects get lesser and lesser each time that you use them. That's where the word tolerance comes from, until you graduate to another drug. And so what I really want you to take away from this slide is it doesn't matter if it's natural. It doesn't matter if it's medically approved for someone else from a doctor. Because if a doctor isn't prescribing you something, then it's not the best idea to do it. And we shouldn't be surprised when health things like health effects happen to us when we're using things that aren't prescribed to us. And finally, the thing that I'm just going to add is there's been thing it's not in my slides yet called going around called fentanyl. And fentanyl is one of those things that for people with cancer or people that are on their deathbed, that's how the drug was invented, to help save lives. But studies showing today that it has a 40% death rate. And there are pills getting around and they're showing up not just as a pill that you take, that you know what you're consuming, which is fentanyl, but it's showing up in marijuana, it's showing up in cocaine, it's showing up in meth, it's showing up in all these other drugs so that you don't know what you're taking. So my encouragement to you today would be that if you are taking anything outside of your prescribed dosage from your doctor, you're at risk. Please do not do it. we care about you so much more than that. The person showing you this video cares about you so much more than that. So please, please stay away from those things. And if you need help, please ask for help right away. This last question is a doozy. How many US high school students choose not to drink or use drugs? This is from a 2018 study. It's the most recent one I could find before COVID that went over this. So let's go. Is it 12? Is it 20% of students choose not to drink or use drugs? Around 60%? Or is it trick question, everybody drinks, vapes, or does drugs? I'll give you a second. All right, you're probably thinking it's between B and C. C seems pretty high, B seems pretty good. But again, this guy made the game. I don't know. Would you put that in there? All right, here we go. It is C. You can be honest if you're like, hey, this is not true. You can look up the statistic, go back a few years, and here's what you're going to find. And this is what I want you to take away from this, is that if you are drinking, smoking, doing all this stuff that seems like it's aligned with what popular culture is telling you to do. If you're doing all those things, you think you're popular, you're cool, you're going to share those things, you're going to be loud about it. People talk about partying all the time. On the contrary, if you are choosing not to do those things, and you might be labeled as uncool or unpopular, or that people aren't going to invite you to parties, are you going to be loud about that? Absolutely not. No, that's where I was. Man, when I made that decision, I'm in college, and I made that decision to be different. I went 2 full years of my college career not meeting a single person who said, hey, Jake, I'm like you. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't use drugs. After 2 years. And I was Mr. Outgoing. I was meeting everybody. I was involved in every club. Whenever someone, you know that thing you do when you're walking to class and it's weird because someone's walking like a few paces ahead of you and you're like, this is weird. I don't want to feel like I'm following this person, but I'm going to the same spot. I was the guy who just ran up a few steps and started talking to them because I didn't want to be weird. So instead, I was just weird another way and I would just talk to them and meet them. I met hundreds, if not thousands of people my first 2 years of college. But I heard that final statistic, the one I just shared with you, that nearly 60%, the statistic that I heard was I was in college in 2013. I read that 30% of college students chose not to drink or not to use drugs. Now that means that 1 out of every 3 students was just like me. They had made a decision not to take shortcuts, but to develop skill sets. They knew that their choices mattered and that life wasn't made by chance, it was made by choice, and they were choosing a healthy one. And here's the thing, I'm not here to bash if you made a different decision, that's fine. But I'm here to emphasize the fact that if these statistics are showing, the survey data that's done nationally is showing that there are people out there just like you, wouldn't it make sense to just find out if that's true? And that's where my brain went. I thought, whoa, I've spent the last couple years going to house parties and bars and doing it sober, feeling like I'm the only one like me. I haven't met a single person who shared that they're just like me. But this stat is saying something different. I'm going to find out if this is true. And here's where things get really, really interesting. I went to my friend Steve. He's a good old Wisconsin boy, right? He likes beer, cheese, and the Packers. And so when he told me that he wanted to join me, he wanted to throw house parties without any alcohol. Yes, you heard that correctly. We were going to throw house parties without any alcohol, no drugs, no weed, nothing. And we were just going to see how it goes. Because if the statistic is true, we wanted to find out. Now, Steve was invested because even though he was 21 now, he drinks a beer every now and then, he went home to his hometown an hour and a half away every weekend his first couple of years of school because he didn't want to get in trouble and lose his scholarship. See, he still prioritized his long-term goals. And so when he got to the legal age, yeah, he made a different decision, but he saw so much value in this opportunity. So we teamed up and we started this idea called Party Point O. That's the name of it. And the idea was that if you blow into a breathalyzer, it's going to read 0.00. And so we started Party Point O, and the idea was we're going to throw these house parties and see if anybody shows up. So day one of campus comes around. It's our junior year, and we go out with a notebook and a pen, and we meet 129 strangers. We invite them to a party that doesn't serve. And you can be honest with me, out of 129 people, how many do you think wanted to come to our house party that didn't serve alcohol? Probably have some like 25s out there, some 3s, some 0s, some 100s. Yeah, right. At the end of the day, after asking 129 people, only 9 of them said no. Yes, 9 said no, 120 said yes to a sober house party. It blew our minds. We're like, this can't be true. We see people on the weekends flooding these house parties and these bars. How could it be that over 90% of them said yes to our invite? This doesn't make sense. But now we literally had their names and phone numbers, so we had to try it. So we get the party set up in Steve's apartment. And here's what I knew. If 120 people said they're going to go to something, 30 or 40 are actually going to show up. So we have this in Steve's apartment, and we get some ingredients for our party. We got 2 5-gallon jugs of grape and cherry Kool-Aid. They're like the thing you bring to football practice and fill it up with Gatorade. We got 2 of those. We were playing beer pong with water, and then we had our friend DJing. And here's I'm going to take you to the experience. We text 120 people saying, hey, party's tonight, Steve's address, we'll see you there. Time comes for our party, and we're letting people in. It was kind of hard to find Steve's door, so we were outside on the sidewalk giving people directions on how to go in. After about 15 minutes, we decided to go into our party and check it out. And I remember that day so vividly because when we opened the door, this place was packed, shoulder to shoulder of people jammed in this room. We counted 85 students in his small apartment. And our friend, he's DJing. He's having a good time. He's all, he's having a great time. Everybody else is so jam-packed in there. They're trying to dance, but they can't even move. It is the most awkward thing you've ever seen. And within 15 minutes, the party was done. Steve looks at me. I look at him. And we say, hey, we failed hard. We gave these people the worst experience of their college career, probably. We either need to get good at this or stop telling people that we're going to do it. So we went to work. And honestly, this is what will happen to you, is people think that socializing should be easy. People think that throwing a party or building your future should be easy, when in reality, nothing worthwhile is easy. Everything takes work. And that's why building skill sets is so important, and having a mindset to know that if you're going after something, you're going to experience failure. That's a part of success. It's a part of becoming who you need to be in order to live your best life. A speaker once told it to me like this: when you are faced with an obstacle, you can either break down under it or you can break through it. And successful people just choose to keep going. So we had to try this party a second time. That day we made up our minds. We're going to do this again. We called up a fraternity and said, hey, we need more space. Can we host a sober party at your house? And here's the thing. We did not expect them to say yes. They said yes. They thought this was so cool. What a better way to debunk the myth that all Greek life is about is drinking than to host a sober house party. Then we went and shared our story with different brands like Red Bull and Pizza Hut and Chick-fil-A, and they started donating free stuff to us. We went out in the community and told more people about what we were doing. Even though our first party was a failure with 85 students, our second party somehow had more people. 120 showed up, and then 150, then 180, then 200, then 250. My experience during these parties wasn't about how many people came, though. It was about the people that showed up that these parties really mattered to. People, people like Amber, who came to school and she just wanted a place to feel good and fit in and belong. And she had gone to different parties with drinking, and she didn't figure out why it felt weird, why it wasn't her. But eventually her grades started to slip and she knew she wanted something different. And she came to our parties. Or people like Brandon, who saw addiction around them and said, I just don't want to get into the same thing that those people have, so I'm going to stay away from it. Or people like Alex, who had tried every drug under the sun before he got to school. He was in recovery and he's living a drug-free life and found it was really hard to socialize in college. But when he found our parties, he found a home. See, there could have been 15 people at our parties. It still would have been successful. Instead, we had a bunch of people, a bunch of fun. And what I learned is a secret to having a successful event, a secret for having fun, is just sharing what we have already, which is our friends and our experiences. And that became our formula for throwing parties. If you ever want to have a good time, go make one new friend and have one new experience. That formula, whether it's getting into a party and making it easy for people to make friends, or introducing them to a game they've never played before, or having a theme of a party of something they've never done before, a way to dress up, to have fun, to goof around, this became our formula because I realized that humans aren't that complicated. We want to feel like we belong. And if you make someone feel that way with strings attached, like they have to drink and smoke, that's what they'll do. They'll drink and smoke to gain your acceptance. But if you give people a chance to find acceptance and belonging without those strings attached, they'll even come to a sober house party. Now that semester went on, and I was blogging about it in one of my classes, and people from around the country started asking me, hey, how can I do this at my school? I found out that there are people all over just like me. Me, Jake, the same guy who sat in his room with nothing to do, with no friends to go out with on the weekend because I didn't fit in, I didn't belong. But because I chose to stand out and be different, had hundreds of students follow me and become part of what I'm doing. And then people across the nation. Eventually, I even got in a camper with my wife and two other friends. We traveled the country teaching people how to throw sober parties for their community. It was amazing. You can find them online under our YouTube channel, Party.0. And it led me to realize that this wasn't a secret. People have fun all the time just like this. You probably can trace back your best moments, and it wasn't really about what you're doing. It was about the people that you're with. In fact, you have a friend right now who you two, when you get together, you're so ridiculous, you're so fun together. You could literally watch paint dry on the wall and you would have an amazing time. And so as I kind of recap this whole experience, thinking if I could make a difference in one community this way and help other people do the same for theirs, maybe this is the way that I'm supposed to help the world. Maybe this weird nerdy kid from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, just being open about who he is and why he's different can help others change the world. Maybe my real objective is to ask you, how do you want to change the world? What choices are you going to make that allow you to develop skill sets to get your long-term goals? How are you going to stand out instead of fit in so that you can change your little corner of the world? Do you want to throw parties without any drugs or alcohol? Do you want to So you want to do something else because the magic is it's done by you, not by me. See, when you get together with your friends and you want to change the world, awesome things can happen. One second. These are some videos from communities that we've worked with. Some of them have chosen to just take over a trampoline park or go to a concert together. Others have put on dances for schools or even multiple schools in their area. One time we even had set up a 200-foot slip and slide down this hill and had bands perform. We played bubble soccer. It's amazing. Open mic nights, house parties, barn parties, you name it. If you have an idea of what you want to do, I can teach you how to get sponsors, how to get people to pay for them, how to get hundreds of students to show up, because that's the unique thing that I've learned how to do. And if you have an opportunity for us to work with your school to come in for an assembly or prevention week activity, or even to host events with your community or your coalition, that's what we're here for. So I want to ask you, if you learned something new, I'm going to pull up this slide really, really quick. If you learned something new, this is how you can give me feedback on what I do and get a copy of our curriculum. You can be in touch if you have questions about our program, if you want to learn how to throw parties. You can go to Vive 18, which is our middle and high school platform, or you can go to Party.0. But if you go to this link specifically, you can tell me what you thought about the presentation. And it's just a thank you. If you found something valuable, this is really valuable to me. And so this is how you can say thank you to me, is by giving me feedback. And finally, there's a code too where you're going to get a free gift from me as well. I'll end with this, that in life, it's not made by chance, it's made by choice. The choices that you make matter, and you're either going to develop shortcuts or develop skill sets. I hope that the ones that you develop are going to serve you for the rest of your life. And I know that if you choose to stand out instead of fit in, you can change the world.
That's awesome. Thank you. Oh, Jake, you are so inspiring. And I love the idea of throwing a sober party. I hope people reach out to you and learn how to do that and use your QR code. Do you have a website as well?
Yes, the websites, if you're working with middle and high schools, it's vive18.com, VIVE18.com. And if you're at a college, it's party and then the zero key.org.
Wonderful. We will make sure to get those two out as well so that people can find you. And I just want to thank you so much for being one of Johnny's ambassadors and for taking the time to teach us about how to gain skill sets instead of using shortcuts like THC and alcohol. I love your show. I love your game. I love your attitude, your smile, and everything that you do to help teens. Your work is so important. And thanks again for being here with us today.
Absolutely, Laura. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll see you right here again on Johnny's Ambassadors. Take care. Bye-bye.